Good morning and welcome back to Flashback Friday here on Gaming with ADHD, where today we're going to take a look at the original Battletech Technical Readout 3025. Now, this is the very first in the Technical Readout line. It covers 55 different battle mechs, 15 aerospace fighters, 3 land air mechs, 4 dropships, and 12 combat vehicles. Basically, it was released to collect all of the different mecha, add some new ones to the game, and expand on the options for players. But it had the add-on effect of helping to develop and expand the world that was available to the different factions. Now, before we get started, I do want to make sure that you subscribe to the channel. I try to put out a few different videos each week covering all sorts of tabletop gaming content, whether it's board games, miniatures, role-playing, or anything in between. I'd love for you to come along and see what we have to share. So, this particular book was, to me, probably a little bit more iconic as far as Battletech imagery. Because basically this is the technical readouts are where I got started. I was interested in the game because of the Robotech television show back in the 80s, and to be able to see all of the robots and the mecha from that game or from that show and have an actual game that I could play with them really caught my attention. So with that said, let's actually turn over to our top-down camera and actually look at the book itself. So to start off with the cover, to me this is the iconic image of Battletech. Most people associate it with the Warhammer because that's the mech that was on the Battletech box set. But for me, since I never purchased that box, this is actually what I really associated with Battletech in my head. Now, this was originally published, I believe, as I said, in 1986. We've got the Marauder here on the cover with what I call the Skinny Barrel AC5. I call it that because in later models, they redesigned the autocannon and basically made it shorter, fatter, and sit on the model a bit better. But you have the full art, the cutaway art, showing the myomer and, different, mechanisms like the joints and, armor plating, things like that. And then you also have a little bit of a blueprint diagram in the back. And essentially that's where, that's kind of setting the tone for the book itself. One other thing that I wanted to point out here on the back, it says the most complete equipment reference book published to date, July 15th, 3025, New Avalon Herald. So this is another thing that would come to define the technical readouts, is they are actual in-universe documentation. They're written from the perspective of an intelligence agency or a manufacturing company, something to bring the players in and look at it from sort of like a Jane's aircraft or warships or whatever, and just kind of give it that same feel. Another thing that does set them apart is that the tech readouts are always published in a landscape format instead of a portrait format. And I don't know the reason why, because I wasn't there when the decision was made, but I have my suspicions, and we'll talk about that as we get into it. So, first things is, title page. We've got another one of the blueprint pieces of art for the Marauder. For the copyright is 1986 by the Fossa Corporation. And then this particular book is the third printing from May 1987. So a year later, and they're already on their third print run. Now, the illustrations are by Dwayne Luce and David R. Dietrich. And basically, they're responsible for all of the art. Dwayne Luce is going to do pretty much all of the battle mechs, and Dietrich will come in with the aerospace fighters and I believe the dropships. We'll see that as we get into it. You can definitely tell the difference between the art. But then, as far as the writing, we've got Blaine Pardoe. Obviously, he's a big writer in BattleTech. I really don't recognize the other names, unfortunately. No offense to those guys. The statistics, for the mechs were from, we've got Ross Babcock and Jordan Weissman. They were, I believe the owners of FOSSA at the time. I know Jordan Weissman was one of the founders. So again, just some classic names from FOSSA at the time. All right, now for our content, since this was the first technical readout, the Tech Readout 3025, basically that designates the year that it was supposedly published. And since this is the first one dealing with the Fourth Succession War, you didn't have different eras or different factions. You didn't have to differentiate between clan technology or inner sphere technology. So, you just had light, medium, heavy assault. You had the LAM designation, or land air mech, aerospace fighters, dropships, and vehicles. So they give you some of everything that was available to play in the game. All right, we then have an introduction. Again, this is written from, sort of an in-universe perspective. The latest in a series of reference books describing the equipment and material of war in the inner sphere. Then another key phrase down here: the technical readout is not meant to be read from cover to cover in one sitting. Tell that to my freshman year English teacher, but that's a separate story. But again, they talk about how the book is supposed to be a reference guide. It's not a novel in and of itself, although there's plenty of fiction actually written in it. It is designed for, to not only give you game stats, but then also bring you into the game world. All right, so we start with the light mechs. That's typically how it's organized. It's going to go from the smallest mechs up to the largest mechs. And here we've got the original Locust 1V. Now, this is one of the unseen. I will try to point them out as they come along. Primarily, the unseen were from three different, I believe it was three different anime, although I don't know all of them. The three that I remember are Macross, Crusher Joe, and Dugram. So those are going to be the most common. Now, each entry is going to get a breakdown of information. First off, we get an overview, basically just a couple of paragraphs saying, "Hey, this is what it was. This is what it is. This is when it was introduced," and just basically just a quick history. You then have the capabilities section. Basically, what is the mech used for? So like light mechs, you're typically going to be seeing them referenced as scouts or harassing type mechs. Basically mechs that are designed to move fast. But it'll talk about its different roles, its different features. Basically it's trying to teach you how to use that particular mech in the game. All right. You then get a battle history. So, how was it used? So, right here, it starts off with during the First Succession War. Um, then as it moves on, it talks about more current battles. House Steiner engaged House America on the world, Callison in 3020. So, it's again, it's talking about the history and how it was deployed, what different factions used it, and what how successful it was. You then have a section on variants, which BattleTech. Some people love it, some people hate it, but it's always had rules for creating and using your own mechs. So we have like the normal weapon loadout on a Locust is a medium laser and 2 machine guns. And so for variants, you have one that replaces the machine guns with SRMs and a little bit less armor. The 1M that reduces armor and adds 5 long-range missiles. And the 1E that swaps out for 2 medium lasers and 2 small lasers. So again, just different ways that you can go through and customize and do things a little different. They already assumed that not every mech was going to be identical. So it's added some complexity to the game because how the forces are balanced for a particular game, which back in these days was typically done by tonnage as opposed to any kind of a point system because there wasn't one. But then the next section you have typically at least 2 notable mech warriors. So they'll talk about, like in this case, we've got Lieutenant Martha Maveries, currently assigned to the Recon Lance of the 32nd Lyran Guard Support Regiment. So they'll actually tell you what unit they're attached to. Which for me, I've absolutely loved because when I go through and I'm painting all of my battle mechs recently, I try to find those named pilots and then paint them accordingly. All right, so then on the page with the art, you're obviously going to have the art for the mech. You'll have this section here where it breaks down. Most of this is actually just superfluous information. It's not necessary. Like, I don't need to know the brand of armor that it's using. I don't need to know the manufacturer of the armament. Who the actual manufacturer of the mech is. Completely irrelevant for gameplay. But again, it's bringing you in and making you more part of the world by understanding who these manufacturers are. And sometimes you'll see names that already exist, like General Motors is a big manufacturer in Battletech 1,000 years from now. So surprise. But again, it's just one of those fun little things. But then down in this box, you're actually going to have the actual stats that you need for the game. So you'll have the tonnage of the equipment, but then you'll also have, the speed of the mech, how much armor it has, where the armor in the internal structure, how that's allocated, and then the weapons, where they're allocated, how much space they take up, and how much they weigh. So that's what you get from a typical entry in the tech readout. So with that out of the way, with what you see, I'm not going to go over all of it. I just want to kind of go through, look at the art, talk about the different mechs, that I find interesting, point out, just design choices that I think are interesting. Again, it's just a flip through. It's not a full review of, oh, this is the best mech, things like that. All right, so right away, we do get into some more unseen. So we've got the Wasp. This is based on the Macross Valkyrie or the Robotech Veritech. The Stinger, another Valkyrie Veritech variant. The Commando. Javelin. Spider. Now, one funny thing for me about the Spider, for some reason, I always associate it with later eras. I always forget that it was part of the 3025 tech readout. Don't ask me why. I just do. But it's yeah, it's just one of those things. It is fast. It's technically a jumping spider, jumping 8 hexes, so very very mobile. We've got the fan favorite Urban Mech, who I think was not really a fan favorite up until the Clan Invasion Kickstarter. We've got the Valkyrie, which is another Veritech Valkyrie variant. The Firestarter, the Jenner. Now, based on rumors, I've heard is that it was named after the famous runner. I could be wrong, but it is what I heard. The Ost Scout, which this one always just looked weird to me. I was told that this was based off of the Macross Zentradi Battle Pod. I kind of see it in the feet and like the laser positioning. Otherwise, I don't see it. It just looks weird. We've got the Panther, which that ends our light mechs. So then going into medium, we've got the Assassin, the Cicada, the Clint, the Hermes. Now, this one, Hermes, the messenger of the gods in Greek mythology. So we've got the little wings on the feet and the helmet. The Vulcan, the Whitworth, the Blackjack. Not a bad design. Still holds up, I think. The new design's not bad, but this one still holds up. The Hatchet Man. Now, this one, like, I don't know why, but this, I think, is probably one of the better designs from 3025. I think that this art has actually held up better than most of the rest of it. Not trying to decry any of the art. I absolutely, like, to me, this is Battletech art. I realize it's changed over the years. The new Ill Clan art looks great, but I'm old and this is what I remember. So, all right, we've got the Phoenix Hawk. This is, again, another unseen from Macross. The Vindicator, the Centurion, Enforcer. Actually, let me check something on the Centurion. Fadra Singh and Ian Grimm. So they don't even mention Justin Allard as being a Centurion pilot. That's kind of interesting. We've got the Enforcer, the Hunchback, the Trebuchet, medium mech covered in missiles, the Dervish, the Griffin, also an unseen, I believe, from Dougram. Shadowhawk, definitely from Dougram. Scorpion, also from Dougram. Wolverine, I believe, also Dougram. Alright, our heavy mechs. So we've got the Dragon, the Ostrock. Again, another Zentradi Battle Pod variant. I don't see it. I never have. The Ost Soul, another Battle Pod variant. Sorry. The Quick Draw, the Rifleman, or I'm going to use the Robotech name, the Raider X. Or Radar X? I don't remember. Catapult, Crusader, the Jaeger mech, the Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt, I believe, is also Dougram. The Archer is absolutely from Macross. The Grasshopper. The Warhammer, also from Macross. The Marauder from Macross. The Orion. And then we get to our assault mechs. The Awesome, sporting 3 PPCs and nowhere near enough heat sinks to actually run them properly. The Charger, the Goliath, the Victor, the Zeus. Again, another one that I associate with later eras, forgetting that it was in 3025. Battlemaster, which I believe is Dougram, but might be Crusher Joe. The Stalker, or the Egg with Legs. The Cyclops. The Banshee. And the iconic 100-ton Atlas. Basically, it's big, it's scary, it has a skull for a face, and it's going to just wreck you. Now, these, like I said, these are iconic to me, and I love looking back at the art, even if we've got some better art these days, but I still think it's good, and part of the thing that keeps me interested in Battletech. All right, so continuing on. Now, they included land-air mechs, which I think at the time was more because they had the license to Macross with its transforming mecha and wanted to take advantage of that. They've been... To say they were controversial in the game is an understatement. They've tried to write them out of the game at different points in time. They've tried to keep them in the game. They've tried to reintroduce them with varying levels of success. But they have been in the game from the beginning. We've got the Stinger Lamb, the Wasp, and the Phoenix Hawk. Basically, it's, all Macross mecha for obvious reasons. But again, just I don't know. I need to go back and play with them. I never played with them back in the day. I don't know. I honestly don't know why, but I think I need to pull them out just for fun, just to try it out. All right, we then have the aerospace fighters. Now, these are absolutely from Dietrich. Obviously, you can tell the shift in the art. Luce had a very, I'm going to call it kind of a sketch style. I know it's not a sketch. That's just what I'm calling it. But these feel a little bit more finished, more shading, and gradient to the art. Whereas Luce was very much just, black and white, line art. So these have a little bit cleaner design to them, but I don't know. I always stuck to the mechs, so those are, again, more iconic for me. That one was the Sparrowhawk, the Corsair, the Stuka, the Sholagar. Now, these are all mixed up. There's no they're not organized by tonnage. The Shylone. This one is kind of iconic because it's the aerospace fighter that essentially turned the tide of the clan invasion. Go read the Blood of Kerensky trilogy if you want to know more. The Slayer, the Thrush, the Transit, the Transgressor. I don't know who came up with these names. The Cheetah, the Stingray, the Reaver, the Sadelets, the Lucifer, the Chippewa, and that's all of our aerospace fighters. All right, now dropships. Dropships are another one of those things that's kind of iconic for Battletech. You've got to get your robots from one place to another. And the dropships are how you do it. And as you can see, they've got guns and yeah, they're fortresses in their own right. Now, I did always think it was kind of funny that they included these, but at least I'd never saw ways to actually use them in a game of Battletech. Like you could put them on the ground, and they're in place. Maybe you're having to defend it. But again, back in my day, we just wanted to play with the big stompy robots, so we never got the dropships out. So you've got the Leopard, which this I always thought was interesting. They have this version, and then they have the CV version. I don't know what the difference is or why they didn't just, give it a different name and calling it something else, but technically that is a Leopard as well. Now, probably the second... Well, actually, all of these are kind of iconic. They're... the Leopard is the only one that... What's called an Aerodyne dropship, so it looks like a flying machine. And then you have spheroid dropships. The Union, obviously, it looks like a ball. Or the Overlord, which looks like an egg, so, round-ish. Basically, the Union, I believe, is company scale. It says it's small enough to easily transport a mech raiding party and large enough to support part of a full-scale invasion. So I'd have to read more to... Oh, no, there it is. Mech complement 12. So yes, it can carry a company of mechs and 2 aerospace fighters, whereas the Overlord can carry a battalion. So 36 battle mechs and 6 fighters. Which is always kind of funny because you're talking about conquering planets with 30 guys. The math never checks out in Battletech. Who cares? It's big stompy robots. Go blow stuff up. All right, we then got some vehicles. We've got the Swiftwind Scout Car, the Rommel and Patton tanks. Basically, it's the same tank with different guns. There's some current controversy because of Catalyst Game Labs not wanting to use the name Rommel anymore. I get it to a degree, but it's also established in the game at this point. They've printed so many books with this in it. It's referenced. I mean, there's no way they're going to be able to scrub it. They have also used plenty of other names from World War II Germany that, I don't know, it's a space game set 1,000 years from now. I think the controversy is dumb and people need to stop fighting over it. Play with the tank, don't play with the tank, doesn't matter. All right, the von Luckner, the Galleon light tank, and then we get into some extra vehicles. The Packrat long-range patrol vehicle, the Long Tom. So this one almost doesn't make any sense. The Long Tom weapon itself has a range of like 16 maps. I don't know. Maybe you're supposed to use it in objective. I don't know. But I just love it. The Boomerang spotter plane. The mobile headquarters. Coolant trucks. Ordnance transports. MASH units. And a battle mech repair facility. Now, In this, they're not giving you specific rules, just the kind of things you would find there. Again, all of this is, it's all presented as in universe. It's, whether you use the information or not, it's just fun and some extra background. This literally is one of my favorite tech readouts. It it set the stage for what would come later. It literally influenced the design, the layout, just the shape of the book, that to this day, they're still printing tech readouts. They've stopped organizing them, or they've stopped naming them after particular years. At least they have for a while now. And they're now breaking them down into eras, just because they have introduced new mechs along the way for different eras. But this one, to me, this is where it all started. And, with how much Battletech has been a part of my life and a part of this channel, I love what they've done with it. So, anyways, I hope you enjoyed that look back. Please put down in your comments, what's your favorite battle mech? That's what I'd like to know. Out of this book, if somebody says, let's play a game of 3025, this is the book they're talking about. They're not talking about the Star League mechs that, might be found in a cache somewhere. Yes, I'm looking at you, Ben and Chris. But regardless, it's fun. So I hope you enjoyed it. Go have a great weekend. Get your big stompy robots out. And don't forget, got some links down below if you'd like to follow us on social media. If you purchase your game books in PDF, there is also an affiliate link to Drive Through RPG. But now that I've gotten things all discombobulated, I hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you next time.